Okay. Woohoo! Here we go. Day two, thriving beyond childhood challenges. We've got Jeanne with us, and I hope you watched
Hey.
oh yeah, I hope you watched her podcast. If you didn't, Jeanne is with us. She is a soulmate coach, and she is like your go-to girl if you're looking for love but haven't figured it out, haven't found it, aren't sure what's blocking you. And I find that's actually one of the biggies that is left over, where it's like I'm not sure like why I'm repelling love, why people aren't lovingly. Like you can be doing things, you can be putting yourself out there, you can be getting all the dating advice, you can be doing all the things and still seemingly to not be able to attract it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering, A, welcome. B, do you want to hit the ground running and share with us on
Yeah,
that?
absolutely. As RuPaul says, if you just stay ready, you don't got to get ready. So I'm ready to dive in. Thank you for having me. I really love doing your podcast. I thought you are an amazing interviewer, and I really felt a connection with you and an understanding about, the topic, which is why we can be so much identifying as done a lot of work on ourselves and done a lot of personal growth and maybe even have manifested this amazing career, maybe an amazing circle of friends. But then for some reason, when it comes to love,
Mhm.
we haven't manifested so well. So, because I'm a law of attraction life coach, I do everything that a life coach does, but I do it through the lens of law of attraction. And I think the missing piece quite often is people don't realize they're living in two vibrations. They're living in the vibration of I'm showing up at work and in my social circles. Forgive me, I'm just going to say as a badass. And I know my value. I have an amazing life in that sense. And they're showing up at a high vibration. But then when they show up with love, they're filled with doubt, fear. Maybe they're an empath who has gotten the short end of the stick a lot in relationships, and they're showing up with a lot of like, I better get this or else kind of energy. And they're showing up in a lower vibrational energy of doubt. And so, unfortunately, with law of attraction, if you're showing up in two vibrations, the lower one's going to win. So you have to really, unless you can make the higher vibration voice or part of you louder, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. And if anybody has questions for Jeanne while she's here, this is the time to ask them. Totally time to ask them. And unless you pop them in there, we're just going to keep going. But okay, I have definitely sat in that field and it's almost like you picture yourself confident in different places and you're like, yeah, I got this. But then when it comes to love, you like shrink and you're like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
oh no, I don't know what to do, right? Like, you're totally not yourself, and it's crap because we're amazing, but we do it.
It's true. It's
Yeah.
true, but I think a lot of it isn't even our fault because that's what we're taught to do. And even well-meaning friends will say, you're too picky, or you're you're very intimidating, so you're going to have to dial it down. You're a little bit too much. You got to dial it down. um don't say that you want to get married. You're going to look needy. Don't say you're into drag queens. You're going to turn off a bunch of guys who can't really handle that.
Mhm.
All those things, and we wind up just constantly second guessing ourselves.
Mhm.
And I know it sounds like common sense, but we're taught to doubt common sense when it comes to dating. We're taught to kind of play a game of kind of a manipulative game instead of really just showing up as as you and I were talking about on the podcast, unapologetically authentic selves. And that just comes from being in the place where, you know what I want. Here's what I offer. I know this is going to turn, I'm not everybody's cup of tea, but that's okay. I just have to attract one,
Yeah.
one person, and really arrive it from that place, and
Mhm.
not feeling like you have to adjust yourself, water yourself down. Just be, enjoy your life and show up as much as you can in dating deliciously curious, playfully curious, without all that need to prove yourself, earn love and affection, which sometimes we're doing unconsciously.
I think it's always unconscious. So I sat in the field, like, so my first exposure to like human interaction love was like, you've got to chase it. It's not just going to show up for you. You've got to chase it. You've got to be needy for it. You've got to want it. It's probably not going to be consistent. And then like the Cinderella syndrome, where it was like, oh, Disney is showing me like what love could be, but it's really actually not what love could be. So I'd volley between those and never come from actually who I was, right? My friends are like, I don't know, you're fantastic. We don't know what's going on. And I'm like, what the hell? And it's like volleying between these three, and it's confusing and exhausting to just not show up as yourself. Yeah.
It really is. And the thing that's really startling, it all is grounded in just not believing it deep down, just not 100% believing it's possible for you, or that you could be completely loved by somebody exactly as you are. The thing that's really interesting, I like to tell this story because, when I was looking for my husband, I definitely was an acquired taste. I was 300 pounds. I was obviously very strong personality.
Yeah.
I was middle aged, so I was already getting the message that, I better not be too picky
Yeah.
or else I was going to be a spinster. And what was interesting is that none of the men, when I did change my profile, because I was initially just attracting young guys, and I changed the profile to be more deliciously authentic, like really unapologetically so. And it was amazing how quick that shift was. We already talked about the overnight shift and how I attracted several men who were really aligning with who I really am. And it was astonishing to me. And I really want people to hear this. When you make that shift, you don't have to chase it. It just comes in. You just have to believe it's possible for you, and you have to let go of your limiting beliefs. And also, I think too, for the people in the audience who resonate with being known as too much or too strong or too intimidating, I think it's really important to understand, if you're feeling like you're always the boss in relationships or always the caretaker, that's really a signal that you have to learn how to receive. And a big part of that is realizing that it's okay to be vulnerable, even if you've lost yourself in relationships before or gotten frustrated in relationships. You really have to let your guard down and be vulnerable, because that's really what makes people really connect with who you are and really fall in love with you. RuPaul says that to the drag queens all the time, the ones who are super performing really well. And she'll say towards the end of the season, we don't really know who you are yet. Like, it's your vulnerability that makes us fall in love with you. And that's really true. And that's really the key, is learning how to see vulnerability as a strength and not a weakness.
So let's go over, I love baseline definitions. What is your definition of vulnerability and how do you display it?
I love that. Well, for me, what I mean is being willing to let people see the parts of you that feel a little squishy, that feel uncertain, that feel, I don't know how else to define vulnerable, but just feel vulnerable. You don't feel shaky. You don't, maybe insecure. Maybe that's another good word for it. And if it's somebody who has, I'm not saying display that with everyone, but I'm saying with somebody who has demonstrated over time consistency and being reciprocal with you, they're interested in you, who you are, they've shown support. It's allowing them to see the sides of you that maybe are insecure and don't feel so confident, where they can then step in and support you.
Yeah.
That's the thing that makes the other person want to be your partner, is being able to see that you need them And unfortunately, what happens sometimes with people who have been caretakers and have done all the work and never received back, or they've been in the boss in relationships and they're really angry about it because they're just not getting reciprocity. The thing is, a really big component of that is there's a part of you that is needing to be in control and is unwilling to show your vulnerability because you're afraid it's a weakness. So if you could learn to see, I think the step in answer to your question is if you could learn to see vulnerability as like a superpower and and expressing it to the right audience, people who have shown support for you and shown a willingness to share in your dreams and share in your goals, that's what inspires the other person to want to lift you up and actually show up as a partner. But if we're afraid to do that and we just say, I don't need it, I'm all good, I'm good, then that person doesn't get to feel like they can please you or they can support you. And so they stop trying. Does that answer your question? I
It
hope.
does, yeah. And I think it relates to, I think a lot of vulnerability is places we've been hurt before or where people have kind of attacked us for needing stuff.
Mhm,
And so it's like, oh, I really need to have a partner who is going to interact with me a lot, right?
mhm,
That kind of stuff. It's like, it's sometimes vulnerability is our needs, right? It's not
mhm.
just, I think that tends to be squishy parts, what I think of, right? Is the things that I need, right? Is that it's, and I've not voiced before. It's like, oh, I'll just tuck that one under the rug, just so, right? Just so maybe you stick around because maybe you don't want to give that to me. Yeah.
It is amazing though. And I've asked clients to try this out and it blows them away. Like let's say they're in a straight relationship
Mhm.
and the woman has the stereotypical feeling of guys not hearing her. Um, Anytime she asks for something, doesn't realize she's asking from a place of frustration, um, anger, and the guy's picking it up and he's stonewalling and retreating. That's a very common complaint I get. Um, this is what's interesting is that I invite them to tune into their heart
Yeah.
and express their need from a place of vulnerability instead of what they're unconsciously doing, which is a demand. I haven't gotten this in the past. I deserve this. I'm entitled to this. To kind of soften that and be like, you know what? I love you. I feel really unsafe and insecure right now. I really need support right now. I really need, words of support. And it's interesting when you come from that place instead, the other person, how often like the man in that kind of situation, and it can happen with any gender. I'm not trying to stick with one, type of relationship, but I just see that a lot in straight relationships. And it's amazing how the man completely shifts in how he reacts. Somebody who has consistently reacted with anger and defensiveness is suddenly like, oh, baby, let me help you.
Right. Yeah.
It's extraordinary.
Yeah. Yeah, and I like that you say it's not just right, it's not just a gender thing because actually there's a lot of sound advice in anything and you can just take it into it, apply it to different stuff. Because I've actually, not that I'm in a romantic relationship, but I've been using this with my kids lately. Instead of being like, clean up your mess, I'm like, hey, it respects mom when you wipe those crumbs off the counter, right? And they're like, oh, okay. Right? Instead
Yeah.
of doing the whole, we don't want to clean, we hate cleaning. And I'm like, yeah, so do I. But right. And it's just,
Yeah. That is actually really brilliant because and Allison Armstrong talks about this a lot. I know she's been talking with you um, about how important it is to communicate when you're asking for something. Communicate the value it has for you. the meaning it has for you. It's not just, you're not just asking for a task.
Mhm.
It's providing a value, and you're telling them, this is like, it makes me feel respected and cared for. And it's like, oh, okay, I better make that a priority then.
Gonna go do that. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I know you did a lot of self-work to make your mind shift. Where did you think that tipping point was where you're like, you know what? I'm gonna like you had to have shifted in your value of yourself to
Mhm.
write that profile that attracted those men to you, right? What do you think was your lead up there?
I think it was, I had gone for 2 years on this journey. I studied with dating and relationship masters, therapists, coaches. I traveled the world. I opened up a business. I got my life in order. And I showed up very optimistically on the dating scene. And I'm still attracting guys who are non-committal. I was like, what is this? And then a light bulb went off in my brain.
Um,
That marketing side of me
yeah.
went, because your brand is not authentic. You're projecting, and I did ask the young men when I became that accidental cougar we talked about. I asked them, what is bringing you my way? I'm very curious.
Yeah.
And it was all some variation of, you look really fun, you look really confident, which was good. I had worked on that. But the bad part was, they're like, well, you don't want to marry me. You don't want to have my baby. you know, Women my age are like really focused on that. And we just want to have fun. That's like the variation of the answers they were giving. And I said, okay, so that I'm projecting something that's not 100% authentic, that's attracting them. So I realized it was a lack mindset, that because I still unconsciously was thinking, okay, I'm 300 pounds, I'm a lot, I'm older, there's scarcity. I better try to appeal to everyone instead of just getting brave and leaning into, just focus on putting a profile out there that appeals to your person or people. I believe we have several soulmates that can work in our lives. And that's really what the shift was. I just got so frustrated. Here we are again after everything. I thought I had it figured out, and still the universe was giving me a spiritual 2x4. And then the response was so immediate when I did decide to get brave and authentic,
Yeah.
that I knew I had to spread the word. It was so quick, so fast, really powerful.
Okay. Yeah, see, and there's a lot of examples I notice of those people. They'll be like, "Oh, I studied and I did this and I did that and I did all of the things," but it's there it is. There's that lightning bolt that goes through you. There's that light bulb that's like, "Oh, this is my piece," right? And yeah, and you get to act on it.
Yeah, and to start, the other thing too was, I always was a closet people pleaser.
Mm.
So I had to get comfortable with scaring and turning some people off with my authenticity, like with the pictures of me with all the drag queens, and talking about, look, I'm a modern woman, but I also want a traditional marriage. I want the paper, I want the ring.
Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what I want. Um, I had to be vulnerable and say that I know, because I knew a lot of guys were going to go, oh, I don't want to be hanging out with a bunch of drag queen.
Yeah.
But then when I leaned into that all these more open guys came through, and it was so extraordinary. And none of them were really looking for a woman, maybe in my packaging. But when I just really leaned into all of that and just put it out there that I knew I was delicious anyway, they all registered that, and they were really called in by that, and they all took me out.
Oh, so fantastic. Okay, so do you have an exercise that we could walk through right now? Do you have something interactive we could do?
Yeah, yeah. Why don't we do just a quick visualization.
Ooh, okay.
So I'm just going to invite everyone to close their eyes. And just imagine yourself looking at a doorway. And on the other side of the doorway is your personal sanctuary, a place you can go to communicate with your soul, your wise inner being. And I'm going to count from 5 to 1, and you're going to get closer to the door. 5, walking towards the door. 4, getting closer, starting to imagine what your sanctuary looks like. 3, halfway there, feeling a little tingle of anticipation. 2, almost there. 1, standing right in front of the door. And go ahead and open the door and step through into your beautiful sanctuary. And take a moment to really appreciate everything you can about it with all of your senses. What does it feel like on your skin? What does it smell like? How does the light play on the scenery? And take a moment to remember in this moment what a powerful creator you are. You are an incredible manifester. When you focus and believe, you already have what you want. Now you see, sense, or feel 2 thrones suddenly appear in your sanctuary. And go ahead and take a seat at one of the thrones and tune into the kind of relationship you want to manifest. Is it with a younger soul you can teach? A soul your age you can share wisdom with and learn as you go? Or is it with an older soul where you are the student? Whatever it is, it's just right for you. And as you make your decision, you see, sense, or feel another soul take a seat at the other throne. And it is one of your perfect soulmates. Don't worry so much about what that soulmate looks like, but just tune into the feeling of being with this person. And if it feels right, you can reach over and touch their energy. And tune into the feeling of being with someone that you can just be your complete, unapologetically authentic self with. Someone you can really be accepted by and feel peace around. Someone willing to work through contrast with you, show up for you, and allow you to show up for them. Someone who shares your vision for the life you want to live in the coming years. Someone who shares your values. Someone who supports your purpose in this world. Someone who supports and elevates you. For a few moments, I'm going to invite you to just tune into the feeling of savoring this connection with this soul. and playfully dance with this soul. Just enjoy. Very good. Now I invite you to ask this soul if they have any advice for you on any resistance you need to let go of, any divine inspired action you need to take that will help bring them into your 3D reality with more ease and speed. Just trust any impressions you may get, and that you may get more answers in the coming hours, days, and weeks. Just trust yourself and the process. Very good. And now it's time to make a bow of gratitude to this soul and allow them to continue back to their daily life, wherever they are in this world, in this moment. But just affirm to that soul that you're going to do everything you can to release your limiting beliefs, clarify your needs and boundaries, and live your happiest, most purposeful life. So you can keep raising your vibration so they can spot you so much faster. And you see, sense, or feel their soul wink and spark in joy as you say goodbye. And just know, though, that you can come back and talk to the soul whenever you wish in your sacred sanctuary. And this connection is already quite real. And this person is coming closer and closer every day. And now it's time to go step back through the door and back into your present room. Just take a moment to appreciate that you took this journey for yourself. And when it feels right, just allow yourself to start coming back into the room.
Okay, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I love that piece with the where you let them, I'm trying to get myself to open my eyes here, where you get them to talk to you and say, this is what you kind of need to bring in. Yeah, that was
And the
fun.
connection's already real, and you can actually go and talk to them. I spoke to my husband about a year and a half before he came in.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
you can all do that too.
Yep. That's cool. I love that. That was brilliant. Now, if you want to connect more with Jeanne, I have her free gift up on the podcast page, and I believe it links right to your website, doesn't it?
It does.
Oh, see, Wanda says that was amazing. Thank you, Jeanne.
You're so welcome.
Paul says
And
thank you.
yeah, the quiz does not link to my site. My site is mysoulmatecoach.com. And that's it.
Well, I'll put that
Thank you
on
for having me.
Oh, it was my pleasure. I'm so excited to see you again.
Same here. Thank you.
Welcome. Have a good
Bye,
one.
everybody.